All right, let's talk about the budget deficit here in Minnesota. This is crazy. So, pull up the B1, Dawson. This is on truthhurtsnews.com. I am a little nerdy when it comes to stuff. I like talking about budgets and numbers. I know a lot of you guys at home don't like going through the numbers, so I'm going to try to break this down as simple and quick as possible. I think it's pretty obvious to everyone that the reason there is a projected $5 billion budget deficit in fiscal years 2028 and 29, remember we have a biennial budget, 2-year budget in Minnesota. The reason that's projected is because spending has gone up such a large amount in Minnesota. If you remember, before the Democrats took over our entire state government, so we're talking about less than 2 years ago, Minnesota had a whopping $20 billion budget surplus. They could have given back $8,000 per taxpayer. Now, let me ask you a question. Could you use $8,000 back? You know, what were the price increases of groceries, property taxes, gasoline, clothing, HOAs? Thinking of all the stuff in my life. You know how much it sucks to have an HOA, but actually our HOA is just pretty much joint septic tank. So, but that's going up in price. So all these things have gone up in the last couple of years. They could have given us $8,000 back. Is Tim Walz and the Democrats in the legislature decided, no, we're going to spend that on more government. They increased the budget by 36%. 1 year, they increased it by 36%. They blow through that entire budget surplus. It was very fiscally irresponsible. So now if you go and you pull up this chart here, Dawson, it's showing that our current biennium, which will end next June 30th, we're going to end with a balance, they call a surplus, of $3.8 billion. Then in the next biennium, so when the legislators meet in this coming legislature, they're going to determine what the budget is for the next 2 years, which is fiscal year 26, 27. And you see that dark blue, it says 616. That is what they project will be the budget surplus at the end of that time frame. That's accounting for the surplus that's left over, meaning they're going to hold on to it.
And inflation.
And inflation, all the revenues less the expenses. And so they'll end up, which by the way, $616 million, lately that sounds like a rounding error. So it's almost like that's a balanced budget, which is what you want. You want a balanced budget. We're supposed to have balanced budgets. I know that sounds crazy. It's like a rounding error when we've been talking about $20 billion budget surpluses, right?
Except it was a $1.1 billion. They spent $1.1 billion in excess to what they had projected, right? So that's not just a throwaway number either, because if they can overspend in excess of $1.1 billion, that means what was the number you just said? 513. What was the
616 million?
Yeah, 616.
Pull that back up, Dawson.
That could be wiped out.
That's 100%. It could be wiped out, and that could be wiped out for multiple reasons. Spending goes up, revenue projections go down, right? Mm-hmm. Lots of things that can happen. Okay, then the next fiscal year. Okay, now they're not gonna. No, keep going back up, Dawson. I'm gonna get to that. The next fiscal year, which they won't really determine until 2027. Boy, we're really looking in the future at this point. But that was projected, if you see on the far right, to have a projected balance of negative $5.3 billion. So basically a $5 billion budget deficit. When they say deficit, that's kind of the headlines. That's what they're referring to. So we have two surpluses. With that not going back to us, it gets wrapped up into, they call it resources that are available. So all the taxes that come in plus the previous surplus, less the expenses, and then that's how you get the budgetary balance, which is either positive as it is in 26, 27, or it's negative as it is in 28, 29. So that's the headline, $5 billion budget deficit. Now, here's the thing, and this is what we're going to do for you guys because we love you so much. Actually, you guys already understand this. Those that are watching for the first time, you're going to learn something here. There's actually a really simple fix to this whole thing. We can solve this right away. And guess what? Not only can we solve this budget deficit, but oh my God, we can help Minnesota families. Now go down to the images on the bottom. The Minnesota budget, first chart there. If you look at fiscal year 2022 and 23, they ended up having a $13.1 billion budget surplus. Remember I said they had a $20 billion budget surplus? Well, Democrats ended up spending money in that biennium, so they ended up with you know what? I'm making that way more simple than it actually is. Ignore what I just said there. Look at the top of fiscal year 2024 and 25, where it says $16.5 billion. That's roughly the budget surplus that existed as they came into this current biennium. There's shifted spending. That's why the two line items don't really match up. I don't want to get into that right now. Long story short, fiscal year 2024-25, do you see the expenditures? It went up to $70.5 billion, and the expenditures the year before, or the biennium before that, was $51.930 billion. You see that? That's a 36% increase. So that's what Democrats did. So when they're determining this $616 billion budget surplus, what they're doing is they're assuming expenditures will be $66.663 billion. You see what I'm saying? Spending on the far right. That doesn't have to be that way. Scroll down there, Dawson, in red. If they just simply went back to spending from fiscal year 22 to 23, before Democrats took over complete control of the government, so you put spending back down to $51.93 billion. We have a freaking Department of Government Efficiency by Elon Musk, right? Mm-hmm. We need a Doge in Minnesota. It's not going to be painful for government to go back to 2 years spending. It's just not. It really isn't. Okay. So if they go back to that, then, and, oh, by the way, go back to that chart, Dawson, and they just get rid of this budget reserve, because why is government holding on to your and my money in a budget account that never gets used? It's called a reserve account. What are you doing with our money? You're waiting to spend it at some future time. So give that back. If you do that, you have $18.8 billion you can give back to Minnesota taxpayers. And that's like $6,500 a taxpayer. And oh, by the way, because you did this, we no longer have a budget deficit the next year. Okay, I know that's a lot of numbers, but do you see, it's so simple to fix. Now, we know the Democrats don't want to do this because they believe in government. They don't believe in you guys. They don't believe, they literally think they should solve all the problems. And by the way, they're very bad at solving problems. Luckily, Republicans have equal control over the Minnesota House, so they should be able to stop the spending, right? Now, they're a bunch of pussies, so I don't know if they're going to do it. You get these weak-kneed Republicans that just cave to the left all the time. But literally, this is not a hard thing to solve. It really isn't. Now, if you're a business and you have a downturn in the economy, it's not rare to see businesses have to make 10, 20% cuts across the board. That happens all the time in the private sector. Why can't this happen in government? And by the way, why can't it happen in government when they just increased it by 36%? Right? Did you get 36% more value in your government in the last 2 years? I don't think so, right? No. Because guess what it did? It actually went to pay off basically a lot of Democrats, friends. And then large amounts of that money, not the majority, but large amounts of that money went to just fraud, waste, and abuse. And we don't even know all the scams that have been committed on Minnesota taxpayers. Mm-hmm. But that's what's happened. Government's not running lean. It's not efficient. Government's doing things that it shouldn't even be doing. We can easily go back 2 years of spending. Easily. And I think that number's great enough. I'm pretty certain I've got this right, where we could actually have a 1-year tax income holiday. 1-year tax income holiday. People, when you have to pay income taxes for 1 year. Wouldn't that be great? Mm-hmm. Okay. And,
I don't even just want the Republicans not to force any new budget increases. Instead, I want them to force no new spending at all. It just needs to go down. No new spending. You can only cut. And, these Republicans are going to have a serious test here with it being 67-67. They need to stand as a block, and we saw how the Democrats operate when they have a majority. The Republicans need to operate in the same way that they fall in lockstep against these radical policies.
Are the comments working right now? I don't understand. I just typed in there, like, we have had a quiet audience, and there we go. check.
Yep.
Thank God. I was like, why is the audience so quiet? Because on our last segment, I need your guys' participation because this is a crazy story. So let's go into this. Oh, wait, hold on. Let me make sure I got everything I want to say on that topic. By the way, if you have a budget surplus return to you, who knows? Maybe you're going to be looking for a new home. And if you're looking for a new home, give my good friend Warren Wessel a call. Give Warren a call at 612-419-7453 if you're looking to buy a home or sell a home. My good friend Warren Wessel of Keller Williams Realty. And if you're buying a home, give the good guys at John Galt Mortgage Company a chance at financing that home. You can go to johngaltmortgage.com. And before I forget, Jordan Peterson is coming to St. Paul, Minnesota. He's actually going to Duluth the night before, but he's going to be in St. Paul, Minnesota on January 27th. We are giving away front row seats to this great show. I will go. I'm not going to have the good seats. I'm going to give away my good seats, so I'm going to be somewhere in the back. But if you go to truthhurtsnews.com/JBP, you can sign up. We'll be giving those tickets away in early January.